Welcome to the first tutorial for the SPSS batch processor. Today we'll be looking into how to use the SPSS batch processor to import our files which we have just exported from MATLAB into SPSS ZAF files. So first of all, we take a look at the overall directory structure we have. So this is the overall structure you should already be familiar with. For this tutorial, we will specifically be looking at the export directory, which contains the files exported from MATLAB, and we'll be using the SPSS directory, which contains all information necessary to process the files further in SPSS. So, when we open up the SPSS folder, we will create a directory for every individual processing step we do. In this particular case, we have firstly the import directory and secondly the group directory. Furthermore, we have the workflow directory, which contains all files essential for processing. In particular, you can see Schritt 1, Schritt 2, Schritt 3, and so on and so forth. Those files are to be executed by the batch processor and will be used to process each file individually. Those are actually the SPSS syntaxes we would like to execute. Furthermore, we have a directory configurations. This directory will later on be used to store configurations. Configurations are very useful as they store our values, our settings to process files, which means that first of all, we can recompute a calculation or a processing step at any time. And secondly, we can actually look up a processing step we have already performed before. So, for this tutorial, we would like to transform the export files and import them into SPSS. Whenever we have a processing step, we first need to define a corresponding configuration file. Let's just do that. New configuration. Right. The first thing we should do is we should look at our corresponding syntax, the SPSS syntax. Let's open it up. As you can see, this file contains simple SPSS syntax, which you should be familiar with by now, except for a few exceptions. As you can see here, this is a placeholder, which is not valid SPSS syntax. Those placeholders will be populated by the batch processor with corresponding values for each individual subject. There are placeholders which are predefined, for example, in file, or if we scroll down, we'll also see out file. Those placeholders are predefined, so we need not concern ourselves with those. They will be populated automatically. However, we can see a public placeholder here, which is called Probandennummer. This may come in handy, as this way we can keep track of which data belongs to which subject. However, those patterns or those subjects or any kind of information, those placeholders can be used to store more information, to store additional information in our subfiles. In this particular case, we'll only be using the subject code. The placeholders you can use are extracted from the file name. So in order to obtain this information from the file name, to extract it, we have to take a look at the actual file names. We can see the file names here. So let us design a pattern which we can use to extract the relevant information from the file name. In this case, we'll be using a very convenient online tool to design our regular expressions in place and online. This allows us to do trial and error when designing the regular expression patterns. So this is a text file name we would like to match, and we want to extract pertinent information, which in our case will be the Probandennummer. Okay. Let us see. On the right-hand side, we can actually see which information is extracted. We can see that for this particular case, only one pattern called file name is extracted, and it simply contains everything except for the file ending, which is text in this case. However, in this case, we would like to extract more information, and we will adapt our pattern accordingly. Please note that regular expressions are quite complex in nature and very powerful as well. We do not have the opportunity to go into details in this tutorial, but there's a host of tutorials online you can find for free. Now we can see that actually the Probandnummer only corresponds to the number plus the condition. Hence, we have excluded irrelevant information such as PBDIA and the file ending. We'll paste this back to the batch processor. Here we go. We also have a look at the input search pattern. We see that our files do have indeed the text file ending, so these need not be changed. The processing SPSS file is of course the file, the syntax which processes the files. We've just had a look at this, and we will just select this in this step. The output file pattern in this case will simply be the input file name, but we will actually we will get rid of the file ending, which is text here. So indeed, we will use this pattern. Last but not least, we have to populate the output directory. So we would like the new files, the subfiles, to be written into import. Note that as I have already processed the import step, there are already files in here, but usually this directory would indeed be empty. Let's specify this directory as well. Very good. Now we need to do the file selection, which is we need to select all the files we would like to be processed. Let's see, we would like to process all of these. Please note that depending on the number of files, this step can actually take up 20 to 30 seconds. Before we go to the execution part of this tutorial, we should store our configuration. We should actually store the configuration whenever we have made a change to it. Now we are all set, and after checking the information and configuration once more, we are ready to start execution. This can be accomplished by simply hitting run.